Tonight on Focal Point.
So here we are at the negotiating table trying to find a way forward. But finding a way forward is very important to articulate that the needs of victims absolutely have to be centre stage.
The worst thing is sometimes you feel very hurted when you're discriminated in your own town. I'm from Belfast and I'm very proud to be. I have a South accent, but that's a traveller accent.
There's still very much direct racism against travellers, so travellers will tell you that day and daily they would experience people driving by the camp up in the Mona bypass and shouting out verbal abuse, hurling bottles, hurling cans, stones.
So lad nasan na gyarta dina ag nationality agus tá Virginia agiri go mé cast na Gaeilge sa discursa generalta no lahan faoi cast na gyarta dina cradamid gur charta changa charta dina.
Well, concert any time of the year is really difficult, but I think particularly at Christmas people want to be together, want their families to be together and be as normal as possible, and that is why we do a lot of fundraising in December. People think about kids in December and young people.
It's the end of a long programme of peace funding from 1997 in which the organisation has grown and developed beyond that. But it's really about the contribution that families themselves who we have worked with and empowered have made around the whole transportation of the whole peace process, the transformation of it. And in general, that contribution being around self-help, support, trauma support services, understanding it in the context of transition and what's required, but also truth recovery and the issue of accountability and justice. But justice not being in its punitive context, its restorative context. It's about reparations. So there are a collective of experiences from families that have engaged the mechanisms here, like the HET, the police ombudsman, inquests, services and so forth, and it's their experiences. The concept of today is to have in the room policymakers, government people, people from all the key justice agencies to hear firsthand. So the conference is a reverse, if you will, a reverse to the norm of people coming with power and speaking, and rather than being respondents and listening to what the experiences are, so as we can shape and get right what's required. That's the basis of it, but it's about celebrating the peace funding and that it's enabled us to get to that place.
Well, on International Human Rights Day, Relatives for Justice have organised this very, very important conference, and it is on the eve of a visit by both the Taoiseach and the British Prime Minister, and they have been very strong advocates, the Relatives for Justice that is, for support for victims and for the right of victims to establish the truth and acknowledgement about the past in terms of the various campaigns that they've been involved in. I think they've been very effective and are very deserving of support. And I think one of the striking features about it is that it's really cross-community in terms of its representation on behalf of victims. Their doors are open for everyone.
Well, the Historical Inquiries team actually give families like ourselves the opportunity to reinvestigate murders, and I am the sister of 15-year-old Danny Barrett, who was murdered on the 9th of July 1981, and we never got any justice for him. So this was an opportunity for our family to engage, to maybe get some justice for him, but unfortunately it didn't end that way.
Generally, as people have been harmed, the harms have not been recognised, which has aggravated the harms and the hurts, and the restoration and acknowledgement of that is central to peace building and moving forward. As I said earlier, if we take as a microcosm the Bloody Sunday inquiry, had there not have been an inquiry, the footnote in history would have been the Widgery report. And now we have that isn't going to be the case with the inquiry and the apology. The fulsome apology, it must be said, by David Cameron, who did the right thing. Now, many of the families affected by state violence have been vilified rather than validated in terms of their experience. They've spoke out and they've been vilified and condemned. There's sections of the media have done that, politicians have done that, because they want to restore, or they want to retain a narrative of the past that's contrary to that experience. So what we need to do is we need to have the exploration of truth, we need the facts laid bare, and we need acknowledgement from all actors of the conflict about the harms they committed, so as we can restore and heal and recover and remember and move on and build new society and foundations based on the learning of what went wrong.
Well, it's not the past, that's the problem, it's the present.
The event that occurred is in the past, of course, but the way people carry it in their bodies and carry it in their relationships is a daily occurrence. People live it every day, albeit at a low level and often sometimes without even awareness, but they live with the experience of that event. And unless they get support around living with that experience as it affects their lives now, then we're not going to be able to move on. So it's like asking people to focus on the future and focus on peace building when they're like this, looking at the past, when they're always being caught back to the thing that happened. So people's energy is taken away from their lives as they live them today, as they try to manage this event that was so devastating in their lives.
You know, everyone's been harmed, everyone has been hurt, and people carried coffins and buried people, and people carry injuries, and we need to address all of that and not leave anyone out.
Well, I think people deserve to know the truth about the past. They deserve to know the truth about the origins of the conflict, and they deserve support from all those who were involved in the conflict in terms of providing both acknowledgement and truth. I think also that there is a huge responsibility on all of us to recognise that, for example, in the course of the last couple of years, what has brought everybody to the negotiating table was the type of failures that there have been around things like flag protests, the whole issue of parades, and all of these things have origins in the past, and of course the past itself in terms of what happened during the course of the conflict. So here we are at the negotiating table trying to find a way forward, but in finding a way forward it's very important to articulate that the needs of victims absolutely have to be centre stage.
We have all been approached with a lot of negative things. We've had our hopes built up and have been let down, and that's what I'm here today, just to specify that when you do open up the old wounds of the past, it's important to get them closed properly and not just to leave people the way they were.
Hello everybody, my name is Sarah Boyce. I'm from the West Against Racism Network, and along with the Traveller and Gypsy Network, we are hosting this event here today in City Hall.
Today we're in City Hall with West Against Racism Network, the Traveller and Gypsy Network, and also NICEM NI for a piece of joint research that they've done together on Traveller Voices for Change.
Well, we're the West Against Racism Network, and we're an anti-racism grassroots campaign based in West Belfast for the last 10 years. We're completely unfunded. We're just work by people volunteering and giving their time and their skills, and we've been trying to raise awareness in West Belfast of racism, but also responding to it, particularly institutionalised forms of racism from the state, whether it's around accommodation or health or education. Well, I think as the research illustrates very well, I mean, in every area of their lives, I think still what's very concerning is that there's still very much direct racism against travellers. So travellers will tell you that day and daily they would experience people driving by the camp up in the Mona bypass and shouting out verbal abuse, hurling bottles, hurling cans, stones. So at that level there's physical and there's direct racism, but I think much more so, and it's not as visible. You can see it when you look at travellers' life expectancy. You know, traveller men, their life expectancy has gone down from 65 to 63 compared to 20 years ago, 20 years lower than for an average settled male. That's where you see the impact of racism. So within the education system, accessing services, accessing the health system, accessing leisure facilities, sports goods, going into a shop, and all of these arenas of travellers' lives. One example that sticks in my mind is a traveller mother last summer when she was trying to book somewhere for her child's first communion party. She had booked somewhere, and then when they realised that she was from the traveller community, it got cancelled immediately. And that woman tried in vain in West Belfast, tried community centres, and I think maybe in the end the church stepped in with a hall. But I mean, that's, you know, very visible, and what message that gives to a traveller child growing up. I mean, that's the kind of thing we really need to tackle.
An awful lot of travellers, about 71% of travellers surveyed in the document actually had difficulty in gaining employment in mainstream labour market because of biased views towards the traveller community. So again, it's further racism, discrimination towards the traveller community, which it's quite high. So that needs to be dealt with as well.
Is this only a problem for travellers who don't have a permanent address then? I mean, obviously an employer is going to look for a permanent address. Is that part of the problem, or?
No, they stated because it was biased, it was against their background. So it's actually because of their traveller heritage and background that they're not getting the jobs, or they feel they're not getting the jobs.
But I mean, travellers would be known as grafters, so there shouldn't be a problem on the work front.
Yeah, but it's employing the travellers in the first place, because the stereotype generalisation, oh, travellers can't be trusted, and so on. So it's the old stereotypes.
They do face a lot of discrimination, and if a traveller does one thing, well, it's a very big thing. It could be a simple thing, but it's made into a very big thing. And there's a lot of travellers like myself want to be out in the community and help people, the same as anyone, working like in various, go on visits, like different community centres, and get talking to younger people and try and get them into into schemes and stuff. And so we're no different to anybody else, only that we're travellers. We're traveller in blood. But there's even in some, now not them all, but some, we do get it even in education and like even hospitals or whatever. You can get an attitude from people, and you're just being like anybody else. And the worst is when you're from this country. I'm from Belfast, and I'm very proud to be. Belfast and Newry is where we were brought up. We always travelled the north of Ireland. My grandparents before me, and I've got all my grandchildren, most of them born and bred here in Belfast, and me children. But the worst thing is sometimes you feel very hurted when you're discriminated in your own town. This is my town. I have a South accent, but that's a traveller accent. That doesn't say that we never really travelled much of the Free State, but we spent most of our childhood Belfast and Newry.
We have here in the Race Relations Order, travellers are recognised as an ethnic minority. That's very important to have the law there. They're still fighting, and I think that law is going to come in down the south very soon now, which is positive. But having the law is one thing, but actually being able to implement it, and part of it is people knowing their rights, and it's very important, particularly this week. This is the week of the Human Rights Festival, and this is part of that festival. It's very important that travellers are aware of their rights and they know how to claim their rights. So that's what part of this is about today as well, is travellers advocating on their own behalf. So we're very pleased that the Lord Mayor of Belfast has hosted the event in the City Council. We would urge everybody coming to the event, and particularly people in positions of power, whether it's in government departments or agencies or city councillors, to study the recommendations of this report, because they deserve that attention and they need to be implemented in the context of the racial equality strategy. What we really would like to see is a discrete action plan in the racial equality strategy. That's what this research tells us that's needed, that there needs to be a specific set of actions to address the inequalities travellers face.
To ensure that they are understood and remembered, that they are cared for, and that they are
to public Gaelic seo bailí heile chéile, go leor daoine óga, go leor daoine éasta, daoine a sahan cearn den chathair agus níos faide géin, agus daoine tháinig a spáilí clé go fiúla bheith seo aniu. Agus tá sin seo le chur aniuil gur bonan carta Schengen agus carta daine. Dar ná rinú go leor maslaí in éiad na Gaeilge le tamla nuas. Agus is tócha gur spráig sin cinneal dí spráach nua agus dí scursa nua, a másc phobal na Gaeilge agus a mhór phobal. Faoin áit a seasan status na Gaeilge sa phobal geginalta, sa tócha geginalta. Agus ar an deabhúirt cinneal go leor takeíocht a fáilte phobal na Gaeilge le chur aniuil go bhfuil leithiontas títhórainn, agus ag teachta sin go reachtaíocht títhórainn leis an leithiontas sin a chur a gluch.
Mar all Dave, it's in channel and show and Hunty Hamasla her football Gaelic couple of shot on one. August fi pobl Gaelic in Tatoga vi sen, og her din yoga. August sama sen Dorber can you'll factus nader organic on a routine giri dutlan curve na nunti sen. August mas na multi renew na van sluggish on land you. Again am Kiana Darnoya, Tamajarga Arjalaka on the Kangsina, Transfartia Gallery, August Gajavan Row Larlak, a grilled as the Bradney, August Fields and Herons, the Kangsina, August the Virginia Giri Kentu more football, go Kesna Gilliga. Larnak or Klarna Crinny agus a Larnani as the count in the Senegotina.
Timothy Shaw, husband in a Plitcheria League, well as Stormount Fuilaher, Countchina, Grwell Fear Fabble, Tea here in the Countchina League, August in the Keshna, well, she'd occur, August Gakrun, well, she'd a Garganshway. Husband knock 5 away, well, the Sinn Féin, August in DEP, Acker Fear, Grwell Fear Fabble, Tea here, Grwell Mudge. Igal o Kengo Ken, Tamage Ledger, Tamage Bia, August Culture Ledger again, August Shanga. Well, we've got Crania again, and Kekan just a Kencher Gajay Corda and Frager Horts to Gregory Campbell, August Kenny Nation or Ken Kenyo Greo, all much ago, a Buggerella, August Dinty much again Darna Crania Hunsluggy, Annie, August Curry Higna, Pasty, August Kyotori, August the Tashmanger like Dinny Spree, all much, August. Well, culture ledger again, August sin like congratulations changa.
Timothy Shaw on Bamachar or Cartagena, August Kahiri Cartagena, Maracom Gilak and Osconarina. And Shaw or Crocanamfa to Sherry Hawk that go mass. Tyson to Earn Changa, August Ernoya Shane and Prira Dunya and Gilliga, August Timothy Shaw on Bamachar murders me on Cartagena, August Ghanaian and Kenny Ahas, August and then you be Italian Ghanaian and China. John much could forward he definitely or even called there and also Ghanaian Mark and Comic Gilak being Kanchna again being Okaji social again. I mean it's chantic dini and called the shock of Hashmans go higher and called the Gila. For the whole school to come in Defrilan, come in Spanish, Frankish, come in China. Ahana Kenya, August to Shinka Hinta, August Shannon, but Thomas Gary, in all Sanal August Arnoy Satahi, a generata, a Mashin, a husband, Dahan Kenya Cotter, August Shanafal, Mission Shawnee.
The couple of party college law and Lemon U sent Fiona was an SDLP, the preacher in the bird Salvas Hermit, Falter Represent, the majority of Buenas do, Confosta Firmage Core, no Nuta Tagiata, or 40 Kuna Kuguliata. August O and 40 glass, August Reese Tamazine Tabuik as the Tagiachen, August Mar Dirtme, Tedley at Dog in the Tagiachen, I look at 40, August Lanny Mislin, listen Stalker at Dogs and Abgochat, Gajiga Monument, Argyarta Ma. Ni Mar Cohurley, Gurani Miss and last jaw, Kegawal, Amster Gallandog and so new, so lad or Nasan and the Garta Dana, Egan Nationantia, August Tamagenia Agiri, give me a case Nagiliga, it's a G's Cursa. Generalta no lahan fui kes na Cartagena. Crajamage gur Cartagena Cartagena marjar namani August Tamagenia a yeri gavolmatic togal kugulia di fosta le pobl min le alla a tafu into Johan Killa August a mahian Emily against Staden Shaw.
Well, Timothy Shaw knew hunt Hashbinch, Goel Dini on a well Samaku and Acnagilga a Roger Hill and Gunyoimage. Táid géir go fáil le agus ní anmuid darmid go an gal sin an gnoimiid an achna Gaeilge agus lá Cartagena International tan mar sin hílmuid gro sé forsteach an actor seo anna inniu in sanait a bhfuil na daine a gal gnoimiid an acteo so táid gáil ré leis an agóid agus leis an treid go dtí go bhhaimiid an tacht ar galidín. Mar siarní ba ceart go ró act Gaeilge an mar go bhfuil ag Gaelic an Alban agus ag an Bratnish ag an Bratenbug agus ní hílamid go bhfuil muid difriúil ó na daoine sin in áir bé agus mar sin gur chóir caithí daon mar an bailach canan cinna leis na daoine sin.
Agus tá íon tá dósach it bí cinnte faoi seo ba Gaeilge an ag am éigen tá stoigh go bhfuil an breúirine mar phobal cinú go darling sé níos luúthe na máil, but ag an am céanna cavis tá na caiint an seo go ré níl méid dóthasach go darú sé mar chudsta íon córéite le tíad an channel an seo tá sin tá deagar tá party a bhain nó gá party beidir ar an clár ar bhain sillar le go said omlan dúan an éan. Mar sin beitín tá deagar leis an dábhil an cuacht rinsin sin ag an am céine tána caint an seo gal ré, beidir mar chuid de package kimchiach nó córéteach atá an go bhfuil an gillig an amás, tá mutíní gurí cinú go bhfuil an gillig an más na pléite sin. Agus ní anam is dearmid fásta gur híní rialtas na bradin suas tá commitment acu a léach gillig ar ratú an seo hui, agus tá sí thar am dífa commitmentí sin a cholánu.
Yes, this is our gift wrap, which has been in existence for almost 12 years, and we have this stand in Castle Court, and anyone can come along, get their gifts wrapped and make a donation, and all the money that we raise from this event will actually be used to provide the service for children and young people with cancer in Northern Ireland. We've recently opened up our first Home from Home, which is a facility where families can stay whilst their children are undergoing treatment in the Royal and the City Hospital. So anyone who's diagnosed with cancer in Northern Ireland have to go to either the City Hospital or the Royal, and rather than travel every day, which costs a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of hassle to families, we have this facility where they can stay overnight, and they can stay for as long as the treatment is required without having to pay for hotel accommodation or to make those long journeys, because families in Northern Ireland have to travel an average of 95 miles per day. So the Home from Home facility is one of the services that we offer, but we have social workers who offer practical, emotional and financial support to families once a member of their family has been diagnosed with cancer. So it's really been their point of diagnosis right through their cancer journey is what Click Sergeant does. Well, we're not funded at all by public sector. It's all we rely on funds coming from the general public. So events like this at Christmas, obviously people think about children and young people at this time of the year, so the like of the gift wrap, and we also have a Santa's Grotto, which is very much volunteer led. We need around 300, 400 volunteers just for those two events, because they're for a long duration, they're for over a month, each of those events. So any volunteers we really welcome.
Yes, it's nice because they're giving money to charity, so it's nice to give back, and I mean it's not particularly hard, it's just wrapping presents, so it's nice.
I feel as if you're giving something back, especially at Christmas time, when we're not all as well off. I suppose there's some people worse off than ourselves, so it's nice to be able to work to raise funds, I suppose, for people who aren't as well off as ourselves.
It's to help people who are undergoing a really challenging time, and it's really to make that journey as easy as possible, because when someone is diagnosed with cancer, it is very difficult. Their world is turned upside down, and what is normal changes. So our role is to help them through that journey and support them financially, but also provide facilities like the Home from Home where the family unit can retain and be together. Well, cancer at any time of the year is really difficult, but I think particularly at Christmas people want to be together, want their families to be together and be as normal as possible, and that is why we do a lot of fundraising in December. People think about kids in December and young people, but also our Home from Home, if they have to have treatment during Christmas and over the Christmas period, it means that they can all stay together as one family in the Home from Home.
Well, I've heard about Click Sergeant through the radio and stuff, and I just know it's for people with cancer. And then when the email came through in work, it was just gift wrapping for Click Sergeant, so I decided to do it.
I think it can be a sad time for some people, so it's nice at this time of year to be able, I suppose, events like this where gift wrapping and stuff where we can raise money, so yeah. It makes you feel as if you're giving something back. As I say, we're not all as well off as some people, so it makes you feel good about yourself, I suppose, that you are helping other people. And I mean, everybody that comes up to us all is really nice as well, and everybody is generous and are donating. So yeah, I would definitely recommend volunteering.
Well, if they phone our Belfast office and speak to any of our fundraising managers there, I'm sure we'll be able to get them a slot with something to do. And they'll be more than welcome, because we have a lot of activity on, not just at Christmas but throughout the year. So if they can't do it this Christmas, although we'd welcome them to help us this Christmas, but if they can't, there are loads of other opportunities throughout the year, and we really welcome their support.
Well, they would contact, I suppose, one of the representatives from Clexargent. I mean, there's more events than this. It's just one of the events, obviously, that they have running.